2 letters, 1 word, and it sounds the same in nearly every other language. Nein, niet, nada, nope, no. And if you're watching this video, then like me, you probably struggled using this word enough in your day-to-day vocabulary. See, it took me until I discovered Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less, one of my favorites that I now reread every single year for a particular chapter that has redefined the way that I approach the word no. It helped me start realizing that if I do not start prioritizing my life, someone else or something else always will. You see, growing up, I was the product of 2 beautiful, hardworking migrant parents that put their 3 kids, their employers, their community, their family, everyone around them ahead of themselves, ahead of their goals, ahead of their dreams. And while it was a very admirable and noble trait that I'm so grateful I have elements of today in my life, the downside of that, it means that I have struggled being able to set boundaries, speak up for myself, push back, and to deny others because of the fear of social awkwardness or the bizarre reaction you might get from someone if you upset them, annoy them, cause a little bit of a rift, or rock the boat of using the word no. We are conditioned in a society that rewards yeses and punishes no. People that aren't team players are ostracized at times, and you want to be the person that takes on the extra bit of work or chips in and carries their load for the greater good. And that's okay, because for years we have been conditioned. In fact, going back to our ancestors, we relied on social cohesion, on being able to collaborate and share and work with one another to achieve goals, to survive, to hunt, or to defend against another group or another clan or another country. So understandably, we have over-indexed on responding yes when requests are given to us. But if I can ask you to imagine right now, can you remember the last time that you said yes to a request when deep down, in the moment, if not instantaneously afterwards, you immediately regretted it, and that regret eventually snowballed into resentment? Whether it was a commitment to a gathering, an extra project at work, something that you just didn't want to do and you didn't have to say yes to, but for some reason you felt either a habit, a knee-jerk reaction, or impulse to respond in the way that you always have. And unfortunately, this autopilot behavior for the first 25 years of my life led me to relationships, led me to jobs, led me to situations that took a existential crisis, the sudden passing of my father, to suddenly make me realize I am not living a life that is true to myself. Now, you may have heard of Bronnie Ware, an Australian end-of-life nurse that had documented and interviewed dozens of retellings from individuals at the end of their life asking for reflections on their life and what they would have done better. And the number one regret of the dying is that I wish I lived a life truer to myself and not of others. And why that quote, alongside the reframing of the word no, hit me so hard is I had a snapshot of what my life would look like if I continued down the trajectory I was for another 25, 50, or 75 years, to maybe end up like one of these individuals that Bronnie herself had interviewed, realizing that by my inability to use the word no and to consistently say yes to requests that were beyond my capacity, beyond my plate, and just for the sake of keeping up social appeasement, meant that I was going to get to the end of my life living a life that didn't look like my own. And how do we solve this? We redefine our relationship with the word no. We have to realize that there are an unlimited number of hours and requests out there that'd be necessary to try solve every problem in the world. And not every problem out there is your obligation, is something you need to do necessarily. In fact, I would argue that you would have a higher contribution to the world by focusing on the things that light you up, inspire you the most, you have the most experience, or that you are the most passionate about, because there's only so many hours in the day and so many ways we can contribute to the world, to the people, to our employers, to our customers and clients all around us. And by saying yes to requests that are of a lower order, something that aren't a priority to you, aren't of interest to you, actually robs the world of your highest contribution, of your highest gift, or the service that you are here on the planet to do. I don't need to tell you what it is. I know you already know intuitively what are those things that you feel called to do on this planet. They're the things that are in your YouTube search history or your newsfeed at the moment if I was to look it up. It's the books that you read, it's the conversations that you randomly light up into. Anytime anything detracts or distracts from you leaning into that passion and sharing it with others, whether it's through your vocation, a hobby, a way that you volunteer, or some kind of product or service that you have, you are actually doing the world a disservice as well as yourself. You were here to shine, my friend. You were here to shine with the gifts that you were given. That reframe or that trade-off is something that I always have to remind myself of. In economics, we call this the opportunity cost, the next best alternative that you are giving up for choosing your current option. So, for example, if I choose to say yes to taking out the rubbish or mowing the lawn because someone asked me to. I'm actually saying no indirectly, but I am saying no to all of the other things I could have done with that time, which may have been recording a YouTube video, calling my mum and catching up with her, checking with some of my mates I haven't spoken to in a long time, or spending some quality time with my partner. You need to realize that our time on this planet is a finite resource. And so we are trading off whether we consciously or unconsciously realize with every single decision that we make. There's a difference between actually saying no and communicating no. There are so many alternative ways of navigating or of avoiding saying no immediately. And I just want to leave you with a couple of sentence stems that you might throw into your vocabulary or your back pocket next time you feel under the pressure to say yes to someone. On a side note, if there are any phrases that you use that might be really helpful, please include them in the comments below for anyone watching this. I'm always open to taking more on board. Number one, if someone is asking for some of your time in the future, they want to jump on a call or pick your brain or there's some request in the future, you can pause, take a breath, and go back to them and say, hey, can I check my calendar first? I don't want to overcommit to something or make sure that there's anything clashing, and I'll get back to you with a response. By being able to create a bit of a break, a bit of a pause between that immediate request and the immediacy of that person that either might be on a call, might be on a text, or might be right in front of you, it creates a barrier that allows you to then come back and let them know, because you've already flagged, that you actually may have something clashing there. Now, this is a little bit black hat. You may not actually have anything on your calendar that's clashing, but out of respect of you and your future self, you might know that you need to create some time in your calendar. You might want to buffer and protect that time. So even if you don't exactly have anything in the calendar, you can still go back to that person an hour later, a day later, whatever time it is, and say, hey, my friend, thank you so much for the invitation, for the request, for thinking of me, but unfortunately I'm not going to be able to make it. And you can go one of two ways at this point. You can either suggest an alternative time that's way in the future that either better suits you, or you can leave it. No over explanation, no having to go on about other ways you can help them out or whatsoever. You can just let them know. Now, if it's urgent, I'm sure you can find another way, but I've found it so helpful that for about 70 to 80% of requests that I often just pause with, I actually can comfortably say no to, and there's no repercussions from it. Now, number two, ask for a little bit of creative thinking. Ideal if you're someone who has a big network or is enmeshed with a big group of people. What you might want to do is if someone thinks of you for a request, realize that you are not the only person who's probably capable of solving that problem. And this might have been maybe a bit of an ego I had at play, thinking that people always came to me and a lot of my value and my worth in the world came because I was able to solve problems so well. And my validation and my survival or my inclusion in groups came because I was always saying yes. But what you need to do is separate the request from the person. So the relationship you have with the person, it's probably all good. And it's not going to change whether you say yes or no, but you can look at the request as completely separate to the two of you and try and help that person solve it, realizing that you don't have to be the one to do it. Now, this has been really helpful the more that I have built some momentum with my personal brand, with my business, as I've had more people reaching out to me or being the one that gets referred for different things. Now, back in the day, I would say yes to anyone and everyone. I'd want to help everyone because I was scattered in my early business journey. I didn't know what my core offer was, and I was just at that point clutching for straws. But I've realized that 99% of the time, I'm actually not the best person who's suited to solve the problems that they have. I have people that ask me for SEO, web design, paid ads, all kind of peripheral skills to what I primarily do, but it isn't in my main wheelhouse. And so when people used to ask me for help, I used to take on the responsibility or the burden that I had to absolutely be the one to help them solve it, even if I was inferior or terrible at it. What now happens is I effectively have a Rolodex or a dossier of those within my network, those within my community that I love referring work to because it is a win-win. The person that has asked me for help has such great rapport with me or an elevated position because I've always been able to lead them to the best person or specialist within my network. That person in my network that I refer them to is now getting more organic word that is word of mouth, and I'm kind of doing the marketing for them. And I'm happy in this win-win because I've just helped two great people who've connected, hopefully done a great project together, and I haven't had to take anything else on board, but I now look great in the eyes of both of them. And I guess my social currency or social kudos has been elevated as a result of the interaction. So that's something I want to leave in your wheelhouse. Instead of thinking, how can I do it? Think, who else can do it? And probably do it better at this point to relieve you of the burden or of the obligation of having to do it yourself. And the third reframe that I took from this chapter that I want to leave with you is asking yourself in each of these moments, am I optimizing for respect or am I optimizing for popularity? Because popularity means saying yes to everyone and just catering towards every need. That's the politician that is flip-flopping around and saying what people want to hear from him just so they can get votes, while in the meantime, really knowing that they're not able to actually appease every single person. That's just not how politics works. But respect Respect comes from leaders that are able to stand up, set boundaries, say what they are going to focus on and aren't going to focus on, but people know where you stand. I would argue that in this age, with the political arena that we're currently living in, with the social media news feeds that we're currently living in, those that are true and stand for something are infinitely better than those that stand for everything, that are flip-flopping around with every trend or every decision or every election that comes around. The more that I started saying no, as uncomfortable they were when I first read this book and started practicing no's, as uncomfortable as they were initially, because many friends in my life, my partner, my parents, so many people in my life had been used to a version of me that was always saying yes. So all of a sudden they thought something was wrong and I had to explain that I had to protect more of my time, or I was trying to run a business and I needed to focus more of my energy and my efforts. As soon as I started saying no, it actually invited conversations that helped them understand more of what I was going through. And that is what led to more respect. And in fact, I've heard feedback from some friends who I actually had these conversations with, that it was like a light bulb for them. It was like the first time somebody in their life gave them another way, gave them another path. And that's why I'm creating this video right now. I hope that the ripple effect of you starting to practice healthy, firm, but fair no's in your life is that you encourage others to do the same. If you've grown up in an environment where everyone around you is a yes person and no one actually can model or see what a healthy no looks like, and you might be the first person, the first leader in your group that is able to do that and cascade that onto others. But now when people in my life hear a no, they know that it's not personal, they know it comes from a grounded and reasonable place. If they're a family member of yours, a friend of yours, or a colleague or a client of yours, and they're really valuable to you, then I think it's worth having that conversation so they can understand where that no is coming from, especially if it's foreign or unfamiliar in your existing relationship. So my friend, if you work the muscle of saying no alongside clarity over what your goals are, what the direction is you want to head to, and the person that you want to become, you'll realize that 99.9% of everything in the world is noise, which ironically starts with the letters NO as well. So if you're interested in getting my free annual goal setting guide and actually being able to assess and review all of your past years as wisdom to carry forward into your future years, I highly recommend you check out this video where I'll run you through my guide. It's a free workbook you can download, and I know it's going to be a killer. So I'll see you there.